Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. In the audience, I see people from all over the world. We have Tambra from Nebraska, Susan from Scotland, Marianne from Norway, Sally from Indiana. Thank you all for tuning in and letting us know where you're joining from, no matter what time of day it is. I see Charmaine tuning in from Australia. Must be pretty late, or I guess early in the morning over there. So thank you for joining us today. It's always a good time to do genealogy and family history. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is where you are. We have a fantastic session lined up for you today, so we're really, really excited about it. Before I get to it, I'll just let you know about a draw that we have going on for today's session. We'll be giving away a MyHeritage Complete plan to one lucky winner in the audience. That's the best plan we have to offer at MyHeritage. It will give one winner access to 16 billion historical records on MyHeritage, and we're adding millions of historical records every single day. You could just check out our blog. We recently added many new collections from Norway and from France. And really, we're adding collections from all over the world daily, weekly. So check it out. So access to 16 billion historical records, unlimited family tree size, access to all of our photo tools. And I believe our guest Maureen will be talking about some of those photo tools today. So you'll get unlimited access to all of those photo tools with a complete plan on MyHeritage. And advanced DNA features. So it's really a fantastic prize. If you already have one yourself, you can gift it to a family member. And all you have to do to enter is just leave us a comment in the comments section and just let us know what discoveries you've made, what photo discoveries you've made on MyHeritage, whether it be getting a smart match with somebody else in another family tree and receiving a photograph of a great grandparent from them that you'd never seen before, or maybe it's enhancing and colorizing a photo and noticing a detail that you hadn't seen in that photo earlier. So we'd love to hear what discoveries you've made using photos on MyHeritage, and leave a comment in the comments section, and we'll choose one lucky winner at the end of today's session to win that prize. As always, feel free to leave comments, questions throughout today's show. We love taking questions at the end. And of course, our speaker is an expert in answering those questions. So definitely, if anything comes up, please put it in there in the comments section, and we'll address it at the end. Hopefully we can get to a few questions if there is time. So now I'd like to introduce our amazing speaker. We have with us Maureen Taylor. She's also known as the Photo Detective and a great friend of MyHeritage. We haven't had her on our show for a while, but it's always a pleasure having her join us for our Facebook Live. We always learn so much. It doesn't matter, how many times we discuss photos and different ways to look at photos. There's just so much to learn. She's an internationally renowned expert in historic photo identification, preservation, as well as genealogical research. So how fitting that today we're going to be talking about investigating family photos. And a few users sent in some interesting family photos that Maureen is going to investigate and tell us a little bit about them and different things that we can learn about those photos. And she'll also be talking about investigating photos in general. So it's bound to be a really exciting and informative session. And don't worry if you want to rewatch it later. It's always available. All of our Facebook Lives are available on the MyHeritage Facebook page under the videos section. So feel free to take notes, but it will also be available later on to rewatch. So now let me bring Maureen onto the screen to say hello to all of us here. Let's see if I can get her on here. Hello, Maureen.
Hello, Esther, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining us.
So this was something we hadn't done before, Esther, at least not in the last several years, where we invited MyHeritage Facebook followers to submit photographs for what we're calling investigating family photos, but what I usually call the Photo Detective Roadshow, which is where people bring out those photographs they want to know more about, and they show them to me, and I weigh in on them.
I'm so excited about this because it's a different format, and then I think it'll give everyone tips, for different ways to look at their own photos at home, just normal photos that they might have in those stacks of piles or boxes hidden away.
Well, there's so much to know about photographs. It's not just a two-dimensional image. There's all the story behind it and who took it and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to talk about all of that this afternoon. So do you
Okay.
want me to jump in?
Sure, that would be great. Let me bring up your slides. Let me get them in here. And I see some comments already rolling in. So thank you so much to everyone who's commenting. And those of you who haven't, make sure to leave us a comment, and you might be the winner of our MyHeritage Complete Plan. Here, I got your slides up. Let's see. There we go. Take it
All
away.
right. Just let me know that you can see them changing.
Yeah,
Good?
perfect.
All right, great. So as Esther mentioned, I'm Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, and photographs have been pretty much my entire career. I've never met a photograph I didn't like and a mystery I didn't like to solve. I'm a big thriller reader for fiction. And so I think what I do as the photo detective fits right into that. This afternoon, we are going to talk about, or wherever you are, it's afternoon where I am, we're going to talk about 3 photographs that some lucky people submitted. And I'm going to weigh in, tell you some things about them, and also give, I guess you could call it sort of homework for each of them to do to find out more about their family photograph. So let's jump in. I know you have a photograph that's a mystery. It's a rare person who doesn't. And the reason they don't get solved is because basically this question comes to mind. How do I start? What do I do with that picture? How can I find out more about it? And I'm going to show you some of that today. There's a process. You have the photograph, you have to research the photographer, what they're wearing, you have to look at all the photo clues in the picture and in your family history, and then see if it all adds up, because it doesn't always add up, and then you have to start all over. I frequently meet with clients and do these road shows for other groups. And just last week, I had a client who said, "Oh, I know who this is. This is so and so." And I said, "Well, but I don't think so." "Well, I think it is." And I said, "Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you because that person wasn't born yet." They were like, "Oh." So just because there's a caption on the back doesn't mean it's right. And just because someone else in the family identified it doesn't mean they're right. So you have to go through the whole process. And the process, by the way, if you want to know more about photographs in general, Esther has a link that she's going to share for you to get a handout for this on the 5 questions in your family photographs, and she's going to share that. The reason you want to get on my newsletter list is because I do my own Facebook Lives, Blast from the Past, webinars, giveaways, and things like that. I believe pretty soon, maybe in the next couple of weeks, I'll be doing a specific MyHeritage webinar. So you definitely want to get on the list to know more about how I use the tools on this website. But the first thing I start with when I look at a photograph is I first start with a series of questions: the who, what, where, when, and why of a picture, right? Who took it? What is it? What are they wearing? And then sometimes you back into it and find out the why, because sometimes there is a why, because our ancestors went to the studio with intent and purpose. They didn't snap a picture a second the way we do. Film was expensive. You went to a studio if you didn't have your own camera. And so the reason you had that picture taken becomes important. Now, there were people who just went to the studio for fun. I have seen that written on the back, for my amusement, but that is not always the case. And here's sort of some photographs to keep in mind. So upper right is an amber type, and I'll talk about those in just a second. Middle right is a tintype, and the lower right is a snapshot. And if you see that woman standing up between the cameras, that's one of my favorite type of pictures. It's called a photo statuette, and it has a 3D feel to it. And I love when I see those. And that's somebody had one of those made of herself in her 1920s outfit. So cased photographs are things like daguerreotypes, 1839 to 1865. They are very shiny and reflective. They're silver-coated copper plates. They are commercially successful as of 1839. And if you're wondering how quickly they went around the world, pretty quickly. The first daguerreotypes in Australia date to 1841. Ambrotypes, 1854 to 1870, they are on glass. And so I took one of these apart. Please don't take yours apart because you can damage them. But I wanted you to see the parts of these cased photographs. You have the image, you have the mat that frames it, the cover glass, the little brass preserving strip that holds the whole thing together, and then the protective case that they came in. Sometimes tin types, which are actually on iron, came in those cases as well. And they date from about 1856 all the way to the present. I do have a podcast that I'll talk about in a few minutes. And a year ago, February, I interviewed modern day tintype photographers who actually take photographs for television and the movies so that they look authentic because they're using actual 19th century chemicals and cameras and plates. So it's very cool. Paper images, they date, some date from about as early as 1835 if they're talbotypes or calotypes and you live in, England, for instance. Carte de visites really start about 1859, but about 1854 for other prints, sort of larger size prints. Carte de visites are like little visiting cards. They're 2.5 by 4 inches. Cabinet cards, 1870s to early 20th century, and the sizes vary from round to I have some that are like almost 8 by 10 even. They're big cabinet card sizes. And they come in different tones, like this is sort of a brown toned, gold toned one. There are some on chocolate colored cards, there are some on red cards and yellow cards and all types of colors. So all of that helps you with the dating of those images. This is one in my collection, not my family collection, but I have a huge research collection because not everything about photography is written down. Not everything is in a costume manual. Not every type of photograph is in a book. There's lots and lots of things about photography that are being rediscovered every day. Just when you think you know it all, you actually find out you know nothing at all. There's so many little discoveries. But this is in my research collection, and I bought it not so much for the front of the image, although the front of the image is quite lovely. We've got this beautiful pavilion that looks like a lunchroom, and we've got that building on the left. But what's interesting about this, if you'll notice, there are 3 clusters of people in this picture. And I'm thinking they're family clusters. But who are they? Well, the back tells part of the story, and this is what makes this so interesting. I have thus far written 3 blog posts about this picture, and I think there'll be more because it is so fascinating. But just so you know, here's what some people put on the back of their pictures. So in one type of handwriting, the first caption is in the sort of marker, which I never advise you to write on the back of your photographs with. It says Prospect Park, Brooklyn, where Dad held the restaurant and cafe concession. That might be Dad on the right, standing, looks like him except for the mouth. Edmund Voigt wrote that. So we know his father, he's Edmund Voigt, and his father's likely a Voigt. And then in ballpoint pen, which was written way later, somebody else has written, Dad Helmuth Voigt was not a successful businessman. He would start a business, go broke, then leave it. Never could save anything. No, I'm afraid that is not Dad. Well, there's lots of clues there, right? We have Edmund Voigt. We have a mysterious other sibling. Their father is Helmuth Voigt. Who's their mother? When was this taken? Well, I know when it was taken, circa 1900, just based on the clothing that people are wearing and also the details in the photographs. We know who took it, H. Grimsell. It's actually Henry Grimsell, because I've done the research on MyHeritage, looking in the city directories to find out when he was at the location and where. And also other details became apparent. How many wives did he have? When did he immigrate? He's a German immigrant, it turns out. So your photograph represents a larger story in every case. So when you start investigating the details, you can find out a whole lot more about your family. My favorite type of photo mysteries to work on, actually, I have two favorite types of photo mysteries. First, I absolutely adore working on photo albums because they tell a story. Someone put them together with, as I said before, intent and purpose. Who's in the number one spot and who's after that. And not only that, but who's left out. My second type of photo mystery to work on, and this happened just last week as well, when their family history doesn't go back as far as the photographs do. So you have a photograph of someone that you think is a family member, and there's a name on the back, but you can't connect them to your existing family history. To me, that is better than any fiction book I could ever read because the chase is on. Can you find them? Can you connect them to your family tree? And how do they fit in? So that's what I'm doing with this. Like, who is Helmuth Voigt? Really? Go to my blog on maureentaylor.com and you'll see 3 or 4 blog posts about it. So someone submitted this photograph, and I'm not quite sure where the other slide is. But anyway, Mike submitted this photograph, and I believe I have some detail about it. Just give me just a second. I'm not sure why all of my slides aren't appearing. Yep, there it is. So Mike said that this is Lieutenant Philip Sylvester Hewlett. Now, I just want to say that the first caption he sent in for this photo was great uncle, picture taken around 1913, 1914. So I wrote to him and said, I really need to know a little bit more about your photograph. And so he said, Lieutenant Philip Sylvester Hewlett, born January 9th, 1894, may have been born in Catawba County, North Carolina, died November 10th, 1918 in Virginia from the Spanish flu, unfortunately. It is a picture and there's no marking on the back. And he served with Troop A, 313, Cavalry and Troops F, 14th Cavalry. That's great. So here we have a man in his military uniform on horseback. So one of the first things I do with people's photos, I mean, you can see that this is a little fuzzy. I don't know if it's a good scan or if it's just the original that looks like this. And we can see he's in what appears to be even maybe a paddock with the horse. It's a quite handsome horse. One of the things I do is I use the MyHeritage photo tools because there's the original on the left. But then, and you're going to say, why did you repair this? There's nothing wrong with it. But I did. So first I repair the photograph using the repair feature because sometimes it just cleans up the background a little bit. And then I enhance it. And so by enhancing it, a lot more details are visible, but not all details are visible because it's still sort of a black and white photo. So there is one other thing we can do on MyHeritage that will help us see this photograph even better and the details. And I will say that I did a road show for a different group last week, and there was a photograph that was sort of muddy looking, and I ran it through all these different programs, you know, enhancing it and repairing it and colorizing it, whatever. And the last version of it, it turns out that the man in the photograph was holding the tools of his trade. Now all we have to do is figure out what that trade was. He had a hammer and a hoop and a bunch of things wrapped around his neck. So we're off and running on that one. But look what happens when you colorize it last, right? Every detail is now sharper. We can see his uniform. We can see the details in the reins of the horse. We can see the plants. It looks like there might even be snow on the ground. And we can see something on the sleeve of his uniform that wasn't quite visible before. So what do we know? This is Philip Sylvester Hewlett, who was born and we know served in the cavalry in World War I. And the cavalry in World War I is a fascinating story. If you research it, they brought horses with them to France, but the horses ended up being more of a problem than they were a benefit. And so it's a really interesting story if you want to take some sort of side reading about that. But let's look at his uniform a little more closely. So on his sleeve appears to be some hash marks, and the hash marks look like, they're upside down. So which one is it? Maybe it looks like maybe double, which means he would be a corporal. Now, there's nothing on his hat and there's nothing on his epaulets, but it does appear he's a corporal. So I found this online by researching World War I marks. So when you look at your photographs, make sure you use all the tools at your disposal. And I will say that each of the three people that submitted, that we selected for this presentation, each and every one of you have photographs you want to know more about. But what you don't know is that everyone has a different question. But as the photo detective, I know that because I'm working with you all the time, looking at your pictures. Some people want to know who's in the picture. Some people want to know when is in the picture. Some people want to know all kinds of things, locations. It really varies quite a bit. So let's just go back and look at Philip in the original. So there's the original. And there you can sort of see there's hash marks on his sleeve. And we know his story, which is very sad, that he served with Troop A, 313 Cavalry, and Troop F, 14th Cavalry. This might have been the horse he even took with him. I'm not sure if that was done. I heard a rumor that that was true, but I couldn't find verification of it this morning. And there's no marking on the back because I want to tell you that the format of this photograph tells us something about what type of photo it is. To me, this is a postcard. And you're wondering, well, how did a photographer come out to the house and take this picture? Well, in fact, I have something else to share with you. So again, here's the original. Here's the repaired and enhanced. It just cleans it up and makes it sharper. Here's it colored. There we can see the hash marks, do some research and find out when he's a corporal. On MyHeritage, you can research military records, and I just got his name right before we went live, so I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But you'll notice that on MyHeritage, the United States World War I draft registrations are there. So I would definitely search for him and see if he's there. Also, Fold 3 is another site. This is by Ancestry, but it does have a lot more World War military records. Definitely worth exploring both options in case one site has one thing and one site does not. I will say, I did mention that I have a podcast, and my podcast includes industry experts like Daniel Horowitz of MyHeritage, people that have new photo apps, photo historians, fashion historians. You can find my podcast wherever you find your podcasts, and that's iTunes, Apple, Amazon Music, Pandora, Stitcher. All the major platforms carry my podcast, which is great. And obviously podcasts are free. Two of the most recent episodes on the right, you'll see curator Laura Vogt of the World War I Museum in Kansas City, one of my favorite museums. Right now, they're running an exhibit called Reading the Clues in World War I Snapshots. This is something that Mike might want to listen to find out more about his photograph. And then many of you are probably wondering, well, how long does it take to identify a photograph? And I'm going to tell you, it depends. And it depends a lot. So hold on. 10 years ago, June Thomason contacted me with the photograph that's in the left-hand side. And we talked about it. She did some research. I gave her some advice. I told her to track down descendants. And she did. And it took her 10 years to tie up all the loose ends on this photo. But at the end of this decade-long journey, and even I was stunned at how long it took, she actually identified 5 copies of this picture held by the descendants of this couple. So what happened was the couple went to the studio and then all of their children wanted a copy. So they had copies made and then it filtered down in the family. So obviously it wasn't in the hands of their children, but their children's children and even children's children's children. So it took June a while to track everybody forward, but a fantastic story. So I hope you give it a listen. So how did that photograph of the man on horseback get taken? Well, I happen to have in my collection, I have a small collection of cameras because I think it's important to understand how our ancestors took pictures as well as what they used to take them. People actually own their own postcard cameras, and I have one. So the back of this is the size of a postcard. Now, Mike said there was nothing on the back of the picture, but I don't know if there were any markings on the back that suggested this was a postcard. Because you actually, if you have a postcard, what's important is it a divided back? Meaning, does it have a place for um, an address and a message? Because that wasn't always allowed. And then what's the stamp box design? Because that can help you narrow down the time frame as well. So anyway, this is in my collection. I love this camera. It's fairly good size. It has the bellows and lots of things. The second photo we're going to talk about today was submitted by Grant Aldrich, and he said that this was among a group of photos held by extended Chapman family member in Canterbury, New Zealand. He said, I do not have a picture of the back of the photo, but have uploaded another group photo from the supplier, and I'm wondering if you think the older white-haired woman in the two photos is the same person. And everyone who submitted was asked two questions. What do you know about your photo? And what would you like to know about your image? He said, well, when Mike submitted his photo, he said, I want to know anything at all. But when Grant submitted his, he said, I want to know approximately when it was taken and approximately how old the women are in it. Oh, let's just go back to the man on horseback for a moment. Obviously, we know that that was taken sometime around the time that he was in the service for World War I. So let's see what Grant Aldrich's image looks like. So this is what he sent me. And we don't always have the option of taking really high quality scans or even cell phone photos. So you can see that this is just sort of one step up from a photocopy. It's kind of blurry, not very crisp. What are we going to know about this photograph? How are we actually going to see it? Well, I'm going to show you some things I did with it so that we can try to answer Grant's question. I like the palm tree in the back and two babies. Here's the second photograph that he sent in. And we have a bigger family with an older woman with a chain around her neck and a little girl, a little boy, and another sort of smaller boy. And he was asking whether or not both women are the same woman. So let's see how that works out. And this is in somebody's backyard. Could have been taken professionally or could have been taken with another amateur camera, a much nicer one than the standard sort of Kodak models that were out there. So this one took extra time. The original is in the upper left, and we really needed to do something with that in order to actually be able to do the comparison. Now, things happen when you have an image like that. It's hard to make it super crisp. In this case, even though this is a MyHeritage presentation, I did have to use another tool first, and sometimes that happens. This is the only one. The repair and enhance feature didn't do exactly what I wanted to do. So you don't have to do it. You can do it in another program and then upload it into MyHeritage and do more tweaking with it. You can actually download that to your computer and then upload it again and tweak it again and enhance it. So you can do that too. So I used Vivipix Restore for the lower left just to make it a little bit more black and white and to sharpen it up. Then in the upper right, I ran it through the MyHeritage Repair and Enhance, and you can see that it pulled out faces. And then I colorized it. And you can see all the dresses turned on sort of a bluish purple, which is likely not the color they're wearing. But even if the colors aren't 100% correct, it does help you see more of the details in the photographs. You can see some more trim on the top of the hats. Things like that pop out. But anyway, let's go back to Grant's question, which is, are the two women the same women? So unfortunately, when we used the MyHeritage feature on enhancement, it did something funky to the face because, and the reason that happened is because her face wasn't clear in the first place. So the machine learning is reading what's there. It looks a little funky. It looks even funkier. So sometimes you use it and it doesn't do what you need it to do. So you have to go back to the original. Again, we can't really see the two faces, except that in the very do I have the actual original? Let's go back. The original here, we can see the basic facial shape of the older woman, and we can see that she's looking straight on. So, and she has her hair sort of pulled back, and she's rather thin. Could she be this woman? Maybe. But take a good look at the older woman in this photo and take a look at her eyes. She has something that we used to call a sort of lazy eye, meaning the eye looks to the side rather than straight ahead. The woman in the first photograph doesn't have that. Plus, this woman has a square face and the other woman has a heart-shaped face, or it's like oval face. Very different faces. So I do not believe that they are the same person. And one of the reasons I believe that is because both images were taken at about the same time. So in this photograph, she's completely white haired. And in this photograph, she is a lot of gray mixed in with the white. So totally different. Identifying the people in this photograph would rely on who has babies around the time this picture was taken, which is early 20th century. They're sitting in the backyard, they're having a visit. What do we know about them? Maybe nothing. Maybe they're sisters. They do sort of look a little bit alike, and maybe they're posed with their mom and grandbabies, or they're posed with their grandmother. It all depends on how old she is. You'd have to play with all that family information to see how it adds up. They are side by side, but you can see by improving that very faint picture, it didn't do much to it other than sharpen it, but not make it very clear. But you can still see the two women have different shaped faces. I would like to address what they're wearing, though. So there were many different types of dresses, and those women are dressed quite nicely. There are day dresses, which you would wear sort of, doing your everyday things. There are reception dresses if you were going to a party. And there was even clothing that you wore when you went visiting. And that is what I think those two women are wearing. They are wearing their visiting attire. They look to be of not particularly poor, not super rich, but they would have known what the normal um, customs were for going to visit. There were also, even in the 20th century, the big change in women's clothing is that suddenly women are in the workforce, and so clothing needs to be a whole lot easier to care for. And these are called wash suits because you could wash this clothes instead of just brushing it. What did these women wear? Now, the colorization showed it all as purple, but the popular shades for dresses were the garden shades, things you might see in a garden: lilac, blue. The colors that you wore depended on the occasion. But what you have to realize is that the camera reads light colors as white, and all dark colors look black. Now, it can be that these women on the right are wearing a dark blue. I mean, they could have been wearing black, nothing to say they weren't, but they could have been wearing any number of shades that would look black in a photograph. Our last photograph is from Anne. She said, "It's my great uncle and wife, James Lawrence McKeon, born 1885, taken possibly in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. He was a hoist engineer, and this may be why they are on a rooftop with buildings around them. His family were all in the UK, and we don't know if this was taken in the UK or the USA. No records have been found that he traveled back to the UK, so a strong possibility that this is the USA more than UK. Anne would like to know approximately what year it is. Is it in Philadelphia or the UK? The location is very important to confirm his identity, and they seem to be dressed up. Is this a special occasion for these outfits?" Well, they're actually dressed in sort of average everyday dress. It's easy for us because we dress so casually today to imagine that our ancestors didn't dress up, but in fact, you didn't leave the house, and they would frown a lot on us for what we wear when we go to the store. But they wore sort of dressier clothes than we did. And men, he had a job, a white collar job. He would have worn a suit wherever he went. But let's take a closer look at this photograph. And they are up on the top of a roof. I, the question is, why are they on the roof? Was one of the questions that came to mind. And so cameras didn't have flashes. So if you were going to take a picture of someone, standing up on the roof in the sun would be a perfect place to do that. This would have been taken probably with a little box camera. It's the right size format. It has that appearance. Again, not the sharpest picture, but the early 20th century snapshots are not sharp. They do have a little fuzzy quality to them. This actually looks like there's some kind of maybe even fog in the background of this picture. And we can see lots of rooftops, and we can also see lots of big buildings. The most distinctive one is in the background on the right with those long columns of windows, which would make it stand out. So let's look at this a little more carefully. So here again, I ran it through the enhancement and repair, because the repair, it did have little dots on it, like some wearing. So it makes it look a little sharper. It helps us look more closely at the details of her dress. It does a little distortion on her face just because she's blurry in the first, but we get a better sense of what he looks like. This would have been taken, could have been taken in the late teens to very early 1920s, based on the length of the skirt and the design of her bodice. He's also wearing that typical suit of that period as well, with, it looks like a shirt with a removable collar. But the question she asked is, where was it taken? But first, I want to say that it is worth searching MyHeritage if you have an account, to make sure no one else has already done the research for you, and then to evaluate the trees that are there. Now, there were lots of McKeon trees. Lots of things popped up for James Lawrence McKeon. I picked a tree to look at that had the most documents and photos attached to it, because that was, I think, really important. Shows that this person has documented their tree a little more carefully. Now you can see that there actually, how many James Lawrence McKeons are they? Maybe I don't even have the right one. That's possible. This guy in the second is born in Illinois. The guy on the top is born in Philadelphia. We know that Anne said that her ancestor lived in Philadelphia, never said where he was born, said the family lived in the UK. Is something that doesn't really connect with that. But anyway, let's take a deeper dive. So definitely you should look at the MyHeritage trees when you have a photo with an identification on it. Did I hit the wrong button? Maybe I have a duplicate of the slide. Sorry. But how are we going to figure out where it was taken? I've spent quite a bit of time on this today, trying to figure out exactly what rooftop they're standing on. And one of the complicating factors is, are any of those buildings still there? Cities go through tremendous change after World War I and after World War II. Are any of those buildings still there? So then you have to reach out to groups that might have images taken in Philadelphia, see if you can identify that building with the long column windows, but also, where did they live when they were in Philadelphia? Maybe they're on the rooftop of where they lived. It was taken with an amateur camera, so the question is, who took that photograph? So you can find lots of pages on Pinterest. This one's Philly in the 1920s. There's lots of other pictures there. You can also look on the website and contact historical societies like the Historical Society of Pennsylvania or the Pennsylvania Historical Commission. You can put an alert on eBay. I know I'm going to do that. I just had this major breakthrough in my family history, all because I had overlooked a citation for a land record, and it knocked my family back like 3 generations in one afternoon. So now I'm going to put an alert on eBay and see if any of their historic houses were standing for postcards, real postcards, which are real photographs, or printed postcards, because they were historically important. And then you can look at a website called historypin.org, which is a map. It's based on Google Maps, and it shows you historical photographs based on addresses. So if you know where your ancestor lived, Anne, then you can maybe go on HistoryPin and see if you can pinpoint it to the map, and maybe somebody else has already pinned those things. The Philadelphia Historical Commission might actually know of what that building is, and then give you an idea of where it was taken. That might work. But what are we going to do with all that information? And so I clicked on this tree for James Lawrence McKeon because it was just too tempting to see what this person might have. And I want to thank Ann Harrison. This is a public tree, so I'm sharing it. And she just updated it 6 days ago. So Ann, I don't know if you're listening today or not. I'm not sure if this is your person or not, but Anne does not have a picture of James Lawrence McKeon on her family tree. She has a description of him from the World War I draft card, where he was living. He was an engineer, World War I. Again, I'm not really sure if I have the right guy. I think I do, but let's, for argument's sake, pretend that I do until proven wrong. What are you going to do with all that information? Well, you can, when you have an account on MyHeritage and you have a tree, you can tag a person. So if, for instance, James Lawrence was in my tree, it wouldn't say no results found, but he's not in my tree, so it came up like that. So I could tag his face with his name, and this is one of the major things that happens on MyHeritage, is that you can do that. It's one of the few sort of photo places where you can actually do that. And then in the keywords, I could add keywords. I can add a huge note field. So I put all of that note that Anne sent me about James in the note field to have it there. One of the other things that happens is if you make this public on your tree, it will match you up with other people, and they may have photographs that you don't have. The other thing is at the bottom underneath this picture, there's a place for other family members to comment on your photograph and perhaps give you more information. So it's a way of collaborating. So the MyHeritage photo tools, and actually the MyHeritage photos, site, has a lot of ways for you to bring all that information together. So anyway, if you like this presentation today, and if you need help, I do offer webinars and seminars for other groups. I also help individuals identify, organize, and preserve their family history. I like to say I have you covered. If there's a photo question that you have, I likely have encountered it before. And if I haven't, I will do some research and answer it for you. I do photo consultations through my website, maureentaylor.com. You can find me. I also have a little help button that comes up if you need anything. So Esther, I believe we are good to go with questions.
Okay, so let me just hide your slides over there.
Wow, I just hid my slides. Wow, a lot of questions. Oh my God.
Yeah, a lot of comments, a lot of fantastic comments here coming in throughout your talk, Maureen. That was really fascinating. I loved seeing kind of the thought process from the original black and white grainy photo to to learning a little bit more about them, getting some more detail, and especially I think it really taught us just how valuable it is to just go and look up on Google what Philadelphia looked like in that time period, or that was, because I think people just wouldn't think like that. So it's a different mindset.
Yeah. So every photo is different. So every client has a different photo. So my approach to each and every photo is a little bit different. But I thought it would be good for you to see 3 photos. And then obviously I'm here to help. If anybody has photos they want me to work on, I'm more than happy to do it. But I cannot believe the number of questions.
Yeah, so I've collected a few, and we can definitely take a few from the audience. And of course, if anyone still has photos Estelle has questions. Sorry, please put them in and we'll see if we can get to them. So we have a question here from Pat, and she asked, I have a pile of blue photos that I inherited from my aunt. If I scan these photos from around the 1900s, can they be colored?
Okay, so I know what they are. They are cyanotypes. So cyanotypes were very popular with college-age women in that circa 1900 period. In order to use the MyHeritage colorization feature, you have to convert them to a black and white first, and then use the colorization feature. But it can be done, and that's really the best way to see the details in those muted toned blues. That's a good question.
Okay.
But you have to it's a two-step process.
We have a question from Katie. She said, how would it work with glass plates of photos?
Glass plates, there are two options. A lot of people prop them up in the window and photograph them and then turn them to a positive in their photo editing program or photo organizing app. You can do that, reverse them. You can also scan them on a traditional scanner and then reverse them to make them a positive, and then you can do whatever you want with them. But you want to make sure if you're doing that, you scan at about 1200 DPI. You can always go down, but you can't always go up.
Got it. Gail asked, this is an interesting question. Do you have any books on fashion history that you recommend for photo identification?
I actually have a fashion bundle on my website. It's hats and hair.
Oh, wow.
Go check it out.
Okay, fantastic. We put a bunch of links to Maureen's, to her newsletter, to her website. So check them out in the comments section, Gail, and hopefully that will help you. Let's see what else we have here. Pam asks, this is, I guess, connected to the question about the fashion history. How closely can a photo be dated from women's clothing from a tintype and it only shows the woman from about the waist up? Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. So it depends. The fashion, there's so many nuances with fashion. Like, what are they wearing? When are they wearing it? Why are they wearing it? Were they wealthy? Were they not wealthy? And the question I like to ask people is, what's the oldest piece of clothing in your closet? So how long do you hold on to a piece of clothing? And then think in terms of how long your ancestor might have held on to it. Is it a young woman or an older woman? Younger women are more fashionable, and families are more invested in having them dress nice so they can marry them off.
Okay, let's see. We have a question here from Janice. How about men's fashions? I have a lot of difficulty with the collar styles of shirts and such.
Yeah, you see me hit my head. Men's fashion is tough. I have to tell you, it's more difficult because the changes are more subtle. What's the shape and style of the lapel? What's the shape and style of the collar? The tie, again, is it an older man or a younger man? Because there were fashions for each. So today when we go shopping, we all go shopping, right? But when our ancestors went shopping, I believe, I don't have proof of this yet, but you could go to a department. I actually sort of remember this when I was a kid. If you were a mature woman, there was a department for you. Go to a mall, there's no department for older women now. It's all young fashion, and if it fits you, good luck. So again, how old are they? Where are they living? It's so subtle, the men's stuff. And for men, they dress for the job. So fashion clues for men can be really troublesome.
Wow.
They're tricky. They're so tricky.
Let's see. We had a question here that I wanted to bring to you from Joanne, and she said, "I have a group of pictures from family of over 20 years. I guess she's had the photo for 20 years. You can see the children growing up and later their families. Only problem, we don't know if the pictures, oh, it's a number of photos, sorry. We don't know if the pictures were taken in Italy or here in the USA. We are working on finding the family and the country. So I know you kind of did that with the photo, the last one about the UK versus the US. But what do you suggest if, for people trying to figure out the country exactly, what type of clues to look for?
So the clues in that case wouldn't be in the photograph per se necessarily. It would be, when did the family immigrate? And then who's here and who's there, and what's the family structure look like?
Especially if there's a group of
Yeah,
photos,
kids.
there's a
How
number of
old are the
names.
kids? Right. And also,
Okay.
what's in the background?
And
I look at photographs from all over the world and have for a long time. So I look at a photograph and say, oh, that house, I've never seen that house in the US, or, you know what I mean? That street design, it's just things, or that prop.
that are a little different.
Yeah, they're a little different. I love it, actually. Love looking at the pictures and seeing something I haven't seen quite before.
And I guess kind of if there's a series of photos, but then there's a change in the middle, the scenery changes, then you know
Yeah, exactly.
that's when
Exactly.
the
Yeah, and you
family.
can't, coming up on the podcast this month in March, I have a woman talking about copies. So there's always something tricky.
Wow. Okay. So I think that's all the time we have for questions, but we did receive so many amazing comments from viewers. Thank you, everyone who wrote in with all these comments of different things that you've discovered in your
One
photos.
second.
Oh,
Somebody
sure.
identified the building in Philadelphia.
Oh, my. I don't believe it.
It's the Inquirer building. So I'll look that up and see if it matches. Thank you so much, Cornelia.
And I guess this is, another idea is, I guess, to post a photo, a mysterious photo that you have on a Facebook group or in a place where you can get a few, different opinions and hopefully, crowdsourcing it will help just as it has today.
A little bit. I mean, someone said no case is solved, and I think we did solve the cases. It's the guy in the World War I uniform. We know a lot about him from that picture. We know when the people were standing on the roof. We know what the buildings might be in the background, and we know that those two women are not the same women. It all relies on what we have for information. But anyway, thank you so much. If anybody wants any more information, you know where to find me.
Okay, fantastic. And we can give away our complete plan to one lucky viewer. The best plan that we have to offer, it'll give you unlimited access to billions of historical records, to all the family photo tools that Maureen showed today, the photo enhancer, My Heritage in Color, deep nostalgia, the photo repair. Normally with a basic plan, you're limited to the amount of uses that you have. So this really helps. This really helps you be able to take advantage of all those tools. So our winner today is Agnieszka Wittag, and Agnieszka wrote to us and she said, my heritage got me together with my second cousin who shared with me some fantastic photos of my grandmother and her family. Some of them we colored and we loved how amazing it turned out. So congratulations, and we'll be in touch with you through private message to claim your prize. So Maureen, thank you so much for joining us today. This was really enlightening, and I see people are already writing that they'll have to go back and rewatch it. So of course, feel free on the My Heritage Facebook page, under the photos, under the videos section, you'll find this one as well as all of our past Facebook Lives.
And yeah, I have webinars on my YouTube channel as well.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, Maureen.
Thank you.
Have
Bye.
a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.